Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Academy on Air on how to move away from last-click attribution and preparing for the upcoming holiday season. My name is Simone, and I'm a regional product lead for Attribution at Smart Bidding here at Google.
Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Russo, and I'm an account strategist on our mid-market sales team.
So today we're going to be talking about attribution modeling, particularly in AdWords, why it's super important, particularly here in this holiday season, and how you can get started today. At the end of the session, we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A, and so you can add your questions to the comment sections in the live stream. All right, so to begin with, let's take a step back and just look at some of the search trends around the holiday season. What we know is that holiday-related searches begin weeks before the actual event. And so if we're looking at Black Friday and Cyber Monday, for instance, we know that demand and interest in this starts already in October. So more than a month before the actual event. And so of course what that means for you as an advertiser is to make sure that you're present already when the interest starts to grow. Likewise, if we look at Christmas-related searches, for instance, we know that this starts in October as well. And so me personally, for instance, I already have my Christmas wish list, and I've started researching Christmas gifts for my family, which, you know, if you look at a graph here, it's a little bit earlier than most people, but it's really only about a month or so before this really starts to pick up. And if we look at devices, we see something interesting too. And you may have heard this from Google before, but mobile is only becoming more and more important. And so if we look at last year, for instance, we saw that 64% of the shopping traffic for retailers happened on mobile phones around Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And we know that mobile is not just a research device, people start converting more and more on mobile phones as well.
And I've been in that situation as well. I use my mobile device all the time. I haven't yet started searching, but I will soon. And the complication that we have now is that many of our advertisers are still using what we would call a last-click attribution model, and you're not getting the full value and insights of that customer journey. So I like to think about this as a customer. And when I think about holiday gifts in particular, I think about my brother. And even though he has pretty much everything I would think I could buy for him, that means I just have to place that much more emphasis on actually doing my research. And so while I may have a gift in mind, I'm typically going to start with a broader search. And in this case in particular, it may be great tech gifts. And so this will help me narrow down my search and think about all the smart home devices, all the phones, all the tablet opportunities out there. And then once I actually start doing my research, I can start to narrow it down a little bit more. And the next search query could be something along the lines of a highly rated tablet. So for the highly rated tablets, I start reading reviews, I start looking at what's out there, and then eventually I make my decision that I'm going to go with a Nexus 9. And for a lot of our advertisers, they may only be bidding on something like a Nexus 9 search term, but that doesn't capture the full value of my particular journey in this case. Mm-hmm. And so with a last-click attribution model, we're not seeing the full journey.
Right, think about it. If you're selling Nexus 9 tablets, you may be working with a $200 million market just in terms of the searches that are here, and these are of course examples. But if you can tap into the demand for great tech gifts, we're talking about a much bigger market. So you're absolutely right. Thinking about last-click attribution or getting away from last-click attribution is key here.
And so we need to move beyond analyzing just that last click and look at all the various touch points throughout that journey. And so by being able to leverage all of those insights, you can make smarter decisions to ensure that you're present throughout the entire thing. So why haven't we been doing this before? What's the hesitation? A lot of times there are challenges here. It's a complex ecosystem. Users are on their devices from mobile to tablets to computers. They're also looking at a lot of different search terms, and it hasn't been easy to measure that, but we have a bunch of really great tools now, in particular where we can look at not only the cross-device activity, but the intra-channel as well as the multi-channel activity. And in particular, with Google AdWords search attribution and Google Analytics, we can now gain additional insights into that journey.
And those tools are free.
Exactly. So there's no reason at all why you shouldn't be taking advantage of that. And so the first thing to do here is you literally just flip the switch in terms of getting AdWords search attribution turned on. Very, very simple. Cross-device attribution is taken into account automatically, and all of your reporting can be up to date and provide those additional insights. What's even better than that is once you're able to leverage the power of smart bidding and allow the algorithm to really take all of that data and bid more effectively.
Awesome.
Moving beyond Lastclick, in general, will result in up to 5% more conversions, and that isn't taking to account smart bidding at all. So really, really impactful.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen much more than that too, but this is an average based on a really large data set of advertisers that have switched and have optimized manually to the new data after they've switched.
Exactly.
All right, so let's look at some of the definitions here. So when we talk about attribution modeling, we talk about a rule or set of rules that determine how credit is assigned along the different touch points in the conversion path of users. And some of the specific attribution models that you have access to through AdWords or Google Analytics for that matter is last-click attribution, which is default today. We also have first-click attribution, which is sort of the inverse of last-click. It gives all the credit of a sale to the first touch point. We have time decay, which gives most of the credit to the last touch point, but also gives some credit to the previous touch points. And then we have linear attribution, which just gives even credit for all the different touch points in the conversion path. We have position-based, which gives 40% of the credit to the first touch point, 40% to the last, and then the remaining 20% right in between. And finally, we have data-driven attribution, which is one of my favorites. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit, but a really exciting solution here as well. So just a word of caution here initially, we do recommend that advertisers such as yourself switch away from last-click attribution. And likewise, we don't typically recommend using first-click attribution either. And the reason for that is that it's what we call single-touch attribution models. It only gives credit to one touch point along the conversion path. But like we saw before, when Ryan described how he's doing research for his gifts, and what we see in terms of the data as well, is that people search more and more. The click paths are getting longer and longer, and they start researching earlier and earlier if we talk about the holiday season. And so only looking at one touch point and giving credit there just really doesn't capture the full picture of user behavior today. So we recommend the other models you see here to the right, which we call multi-touch attribution models. But first off, let's look into data-driven a little bit more. If you're eligible for data-driven attribution, we always recommend that you use it. And by eligible, I mean that you have 600 conversions per month, and that you have, over the same period of time, 15,000 Google.com search clicks or more. And the reasons data-driven attribution is so exciting is that it's customized to your own accounts and the keywords that you have decided to bid on. So it looks at all these different keywords, and using machine learning, it goes in and analyzes which of these keywords are helping to drive sales. And then it assigns more weight to the keywords that drive sales and less weight to the ones that don't drive sales at all. And the system goes in and learns and adjusts over time. So if you're adding new keywords, or let's say user behavior changes, maybe the keywords that drove value before for some reason don't drive value anymore, our system is just going to go in and gradually adjust that weight that's been assigned to that keyword. So this may still sound a little bit abstract, so let's look at an example here. We may have a set of users that have done a similar research path as Ryan did before. They have searched for top-rated tablets and for Nexus 9 tablets. And for people following this path, we could, for instance, see a 2% conversion rate. But let's say we have another set of users that have searched for best tech gifts, highly rated tablets, and Nexus 9 tablets. Their conversion rate for this set of users may be 3%. So even though we have an additional click, which of course equates to more cost, it actually has a 1% incremental impact on conversion rate. Which, when you think about it and look at the keyword that we have here, best tech gifts, there is a clear purchase intent. But a keyword like that may very well be grouped in with a bunch of generic keywords that don't necessarily drive direct last-click conversion rates. So with last-click attribution, best tech gifts, even though it's a keyword that may be performing really well, it may not get the full credit that it deserves. With data-driven attribution, we'll be able to automatically take that into account. But you may also have conversions that are not eligible for data-driven attribution. And this is not a problem at all. We have some really great, what we call rules-based attribution models here that are also multi-touch. So think about user behavior. If someone doesn't know your brand, of course they can't go ahead and search for your brand term. And so they may start with something more generic and then move down the funnel until they learn about your brand, search for it, and then convert. So with that in mind, if you're an advertiser that wants to reach out and grow your consumer base, we recommend the model that's called position-based. As we discussed before, position-based attribution assigns 40% of the credit to the first touchpoint and 40% of the credit to the last touchpoint, and the remaining 20% in between. And so what that means is that you give sufficient credit to those initial keywords where people start their research phase, and this can help you get new users in your funnel. But if, on the other hand, you're happy with your current consumer base, but you want to increase, let's say, loyalty or basket size, something like time decay could be a good option for you. So here we give most of the credit to the last click, and then you give a bit of credit to the clicks before that. And finally, of course, if you don't think you fit like on either side of the spectrum that I just described, we do have linear attribution modeling, where you give even credit to every single touch point throughout the purchase path. So let's look at what this looks like in practice. Imagine someone is clicking on great tech gifts, then highly rated tablets, and then Nexus 9 tablets. With last click attribution, this click path would give 1 conversion credited to the brand search campaign for Nexus 9 tablets, and 0 credit to the other clicks, even though we know that they had quite a bit of impact as well. But if you look, for instance, at time decay, one of the rules-based models we just discussed, you would see half of a conversion credited to the branded campaign, but you would also see 30% to the highly rated tablet campaign, and 20% to the great tech gifts campaign. So in that way, you can take into account the impact of these earlier clicks. Likewise, Ryan mentioned that this works really well with Crossdevice as well. So let's look at what that looks like in practice. Imagine someone starts a research on mobile phones. This is something we see is very common. Then they go on to search for your brand on their mobile phone. They click on an ad again. And then when they decide this is something they want to go with, they may go on their desktop, make a search, click on the branded ad, and then convert. The way we're used to reporting on this in the AdWords interface is to give 1 conversion credited to desktop and 0 conversions to mobile. But if we look at, for instance, time decay again, we would see half a conversion credited to desktop, but the other half would be credited to the 2 mobile clicks that were in play here. That way we can make sure to take into account and give credit to mobile as a research device that it was in this purchase path. So at this point, hopefully you're thinking that this sounds like a great solution for you. But what does it look like in practice for you and your account? It's a way to see what the impact is going to be. And luckily there is. Now this is a little small, but if you have your AdWords account open, you can go into Tools, then drop down and click on Attribution. And then on the left-hand side here, you see where it says Attribution Modeling in the bottom. That'll allow you to see this table where we compare the conversion volume for the different campaigns reported on Lastclick, and in this case, data-driven attribution. And you can change the attribution model to the one that you want for your business. And so in that way, on the right-hand side, you can see what the difference in reported conversions is going to be when you switch your attribution model. So you can see which campaigns are likely to get more conversion credit and which ones are going to get less conversion credit. And of course, how do we change it? Again, Ryan was saying this was super easy. You just flip the switch basically. And all you need to do is to go in, again in your AdWords account, go to the conversions overview and click on the conversion type that you want to change the attribution model for. On the bottom part of the page you'll be taken to, you can see where it says attribution models. And here's a drop-down menu with all the different attribution models that are available. If you're eligible for data-driven attribution, this is going to show up here. And if you're not, you won't see the options to choose data-driven attribution. So you don't have to worry about figuring out if you're eligible or not. This is going to show up directly in the interface. And all you need to do is to choose a model you want for your business and click Save. It's that easy.
Super easy. So what does this mean in terms of your own internal analysis? I like to remind my advertisers that we're changing timelines, and so we have to take that into account after you switch your model, because currently if you're on last click, all of that credit's being given to that last touch point. And so by switching over to another attribution model, you're now breaking up your conversions into smaller chunks, and you're attributing a little bit of credit for each of those touch points, and that'll go back in time. So in practice, what we can see is for any sort of dates that may be a larger activity, a higher volume date like Black Friday or Cyber Monday. Whereas before you may have been used to having a lot of conversion volume come in on those days, while I'm sure you would still have quite a bit, you may not have as much, and that conversion will be broken up and distributed throughout each customer journey touch point. And so looking at the peak dates, you can see how it will then travel back in time and credit each step along that process. But this is very important for your reporting as well. Keep in mind that nothing's actually happening to your overall conversion volume. You're still getting the sales, you're still getting the leads, but it's being attributed a little bit differently and over multiple touch points.
Yeah, so we know from before that demand starts already in October. But it can be a little bit difficult to see. You get a lot of sales around, let's say, Black Friday, but where did those sales actually come from? What was the conversion path there? And by switching attribution model, you will be able to give credit to those earlier clicks and touch points that finally led to a sale.
And so when you are comparing these periods over time, just make sure you're comparing apples to apples and enable the column that shows current conversion models so you can get an accurate comparison between the two periods of time.
All right, and so there's two more things to remember before you get started on this. The first one, of course, is we're changing the attribution model for the conversions that you're tracking. So make sure that you're tracking everything correctly and you're tracking everything that creates value for your business. If you're a retailer, for instance, make sure to track online sales and to track the value of the sales that you're generating. And likewise, if you're taking conversions over the phone, make sure you're tracking that as well. So keep that in mind. What are the things that are adding value to your business that users can do on your website or maybe over the phone, and track that within the AdWords interface so you can see the full value of the campaigns that you're advertising in.
So let's keep in mind that this is only as powerful as you make it, and you have to act on the new attribution model. And so what we mean by act on that, there are a few steps that you can take to make sure that you're leveraging all of the new data. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're adjusting the experience across all devices to leverage that initial part of the customer journey if that's on mobile. So make sure you're showing the true value of mobile and that you're bidding accordingly on mobile. Also, when it comes down to your keywords, you want to make sure that you aren't just keeping in mind those super targeted keywords, but that you're expanding your keywords to the non-brand, higher in the conversion funnel keywords so that you can actually bid competitively on all of those channels that are bringing in all of these new sales. Keeping in mind our example from before, you want to go after the $20 billion market, not the smaller one.
Exactly.
So if you're thinking to yourself, well, I pretty much have all the search query coverage I need, my keywords are good, think again, because one stat I like to remember is that 15% of all searches on Google have never been seen before. There's always opportunity out there.
All right, so optimizing manual is a really great option, but if you want to save yourself some time, we definitely recommend looking into Google's smart bidding solutions. With Google Smart Bidding, we have advanced machine learning. It goes into every single auction and looks at the likelihood of a conversion and sets your bid accordingly. It's really unique and superior to manual bidding in many ways because it can go in and analyze all the different variables for each of the users that enters the auction. Time of day, for instance, the devices they're on, previous search behavior, etc. And so it can make a super targeted bid based on all this information. And so we have a few different smart bidding strategies that I want to highlight here. We have enhanced cost per click, which really is the one that's closest to manual bidding in AdWords that you're used to. With enhanced cost per click, you still set a max CPC bid for your keywords, but our system is going to go in and bid slightly higher or slightly lower, depending on the likelihood of a conversion of the person that's searching. We also have maximized conversions, which is new, and a strategy I'm personally really excited about. This is great if you have campaigns that are limited by budget and where you have, we usually say as a guideline, less than 90% impression share. What the system goes in and does is it looks at the budget that's available and then it maximizes the volume of conversions within that budget. We also have target cost per acquisition, which is one of the first smart bidding solutions that we launched, where you can get as many conversions as possible within a set limit in terms of the cost per acquisition that you're willing to pay. And much like target CPA, we have target return on ad spend, where the limit you set is not in terms of the cost per acquisition, but in terms of the return on ad spend that you want from the sales that you're getting. All right, so I know that you had a lot of success with this last year when you worked with an advertiser.
Yeah, so I like to tell my advertisers that if they qualify for data-driven attribution and they're leveraging something like smart bidding, you're really setting yourself up for success. And it's kind of like winning the lottery with the data-driven attribution. You qualified. And in this case in particular, we had an advertiser that qualified. They definitely wanted to stay ahead of the curve and get ahead for the holiday season. And so they were already leveraging target CPA bidding, and they ended up adding data-driven attribution to that to where the algorithm could bid effectively across the entire customer journey. And one really, really interesting thing that we saw happen was that the majority of the spend in that budget was shifted from desktop to mobile. And we were thinking that that course may look a little bit different, but ultimately the CPA target was able to remain very, very accurate. And it resulted in an increase in conversions of around 20% since their mobile competitive landscape was a little bit different. It was a little bit cheaper, and there was higher demand. So they were able to shift budget accordingly by leveraging target CPA and data-driven attribution, and it set them up for success.
It's really great to hear. Yeah, so for any of you guys that are listening out there, we're in September now. We have about a month or so before demand starts increasing. If you want to leverage these amazing new technologies and create success for yourself or any advertisers that you're helping, we definitely recommend getting on it now so you can capitalize on the growth in demand that's going to start just in a couple of weeks. All right, we do have time for Q&A now. And as mentioned in the beginning, if you have any questions, you can add them in the chat box in the live stream. But let's let's see if any questions have come in.
All right. Okay, Simone, if I change a Google Analytics imported goal to non-Lastclick, what will that look like in Google Analytics?
All right, so this is a question that we get quite often. And if you have Google Analytics imported goals in AdWords, you can change the attribution model within AdWords, but nothing happens on the side of Google Analytics. So in Google Analytics, everything is going to be reported exactly like you see it today. The only change is going to be on the reporting side in AdWords.
Okay, what about conversion types? Which conversion types does this work for?
Yeah, good question. It works for most of the major conversion types that you're probably using. It works for, as I said, Google Analytics imported goals, of course for AdWords conversions, it works for call conversions as well, and imported conversions.
Okay, let's talk about CPA a little bit. How do we calculate the right CPA here?
So what the right CPA is for your business really depends on you and your sales and your margins. So I would encourage that you look into that. But in terms of what the right CPA is, if we're talking smart bidding and what we should set the target at, we recommend starting with the average CPA that you're currently observing in the campaign. Typically over the last 30 days, it's a time interval that we recommend looking at. So if you're thinking about implementing target CPA, we recommend looking at the last 30 days, seeing what the average CPA is during that time period, setting that as a target. But then if you want to optimize over time, you can make gradual changes. We do recommend that you don't make more than 10-20% changes at a time though.
And just to add context to that, I have seen that happen with some of my advertising partners where they've made a change beyond that recommended threshold. And what ends up happening is that you put the algorithm back into learning mode and it creates a more volatile environment. So I just want to double down on what you said right there.
So start with what you have as the average in the account today and then work from there.
Okay, it looks like we have another one that came in here. Do you think the threshold for data-driven attribution will ever be lower than 600?
We hear that every once in a while too, and it's a good question because of course this is a great solution and we do want as many advertisers as possible to get access to it. However, I don't see it on the horizon right now. The reason we do need a pretty large volume is because it's based on machine learning. So we need to have enough data within the account to calculate the weight for the different keywords that we have with data-driven attribution. So no, I don't see it being decreased anytime soon, but of course, you never know.
Great questions. It looks like that's it coming in.
Yeah. Thank you very much for dialing in And as always, you can always come back and visit other videos in this series.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.